Shovel now. How y'all feeling? Giving thanks and honor to the God of our forefathers, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. May the words of my lips and the meditation of my mind be acceptable before you, O Yah, my rock and my redeemer. Shabbat Shalom. So, you know, it took me a while to wake up from this weekend. I didn't wake up till like Wednesday. I mean, I was at work, but, you know, the event, everything happening, and, you know, I don't get funky till like one time a year. And this one time is when I get down. So I got down so heavy, I didn't wake up until Wednesday. But I thank the Most High God because I love seeing the children of Israel enjoy themselves. I love seeing God's people be together. I love seeing the Most High people be able to have some time and period without strife and confusion. As least as possible. But I would want to say this. You know, unity is not a day. It's a practice. And it's good that we can host an event, but we have to stop being cosmetic. Which the meaning is that we have to be able to embrace the qualities that can bring the Most High God's people together. And this is not about us focusing on us, but making sure that we're servants to God's people. You know, something happened one day and I had talked to Uz. I said, Chief Uzziah, excuse me. I said, do people think that we just have our brains oozing out the sides of our heads, like we don't know what we're doing or know what we're talking about sometimes? Because oftentimes they may take what they think is a heartfelt stance on a certain situation without having the empathy to understand what you're dealing with in a certain situation. I don't come by decisions lightly. I don't think anybody does that practices Torah. So when you come by a certain decision, we all have to learn to respect the decisions that people make in righteousness. Because it's not that you want to do certain things or tell people no or tell people listen. It's not your choice to do that, but you have to take a stance somewhere. Because enough is enough. Like I said at Unity Shabbat, how do you call yourself having love and unity and all of those things if you don't protect it from the people who are trying to destroy it? Because everybody don't care about it. So it's not hatred towards anybody, but you do what you feel like doing. You don't have the rule of thumb under your belt. You don't believe that the rules apply to everybody. You think that you are an individual and that you can do what you feel. I don't live in that world. I don't have the luxury of living in that world. There's something that our late teacher, Maureen Misha, used to always say. He talked about gene-altering events. Now, I know some of you thought he was bugging out when he was saying that. But it come to find out that certain things that practice or that you choose to practice in your life become actually gene-altering. That means that these things become part of your makeup. White racism is a part of their DNA. Right? They grow up in a habit of, you know, looking down on certain people. And I know some of you experience this. I'm going to do a teaching on this one day. But you may notice that there's people that don't hold the door for you of that persuasion. They don't look you in the face of that persuasion. They don't even say hello to you of that persuasion. They do of that persuasion. Right? They don't know how to really interact with you of that persuasion because remember, 300 years they didn't have to. So them, children upon children dealt with you in a certain way. So now they deal with us different. Now they have a way that they deal with Southerners. They have a different way that they deal with people up north. They have a different way that they deal with the West Indian. They may be more comfortable with the African from West Africa than they are with African Americans because we represent their sin. Okay. their crime. So I'd rather deal with somebody from Jamaica because I don't have a direct contact with them. But then look at how the English may deal with people from Jamaica and Barbados. Because they represent their sin.
That's right.
So we can't let them play with us and manipulate us into having that understanding that we're different. Because we've all experienced a common slave master. They've all had that understanding. You know what? When Haiti got free, and Haiti killed up a whole heap of white folks. And when they got free, white supremacy's standard was to not let a country like that spread about, to let that idea go forth. They used to blame revolutions on Haitians because they didn't want that concept or that idea of freedom. Because when you have the spirit to be a man and a woman free from bondage, you do anything to achieve that goal. So I want to talk about some concepts because, you know, there's 3 chapters in Proverbs, and some of these chapters are like 33 verses apiece. And you know how we usually do. We go and explain each proverb, and I'm not doing that today. That's a lot, right? I probably won't get through one, right? But as I was reading it, there's particular concepts that always repeat themselves in these verses. So I wanted to focus on those concepts. Even though there are more concepts, I just want to go through these 4. Please read this on your own when you get a chance to. And there's some men that were always better suited to do this. Our Chief Prince, he's excellent at this. He knows how to draw it out, teach it. These fast-talking guys, we're not too good. But I'm going to give this a shot so that we can have an understanding of how this works and understanding of some of these concepts that we need to embrace. So first, I want to talk about this thing called justice and equity. You know, the basis of the law, of the Torah that we practice, is social justice. It is the root of the reason why we keep Torah in itself. The fact that we are part of an atmosphere that has a system of fairness for all people. This is the reason why we have a law that says, love thy neighbor as thyself. It's the reason why we have a law that says, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, life for life, burning for burning. It's the reason why we have laws that says, some men don't give too much, don't give too little, but give according to what I prescribe. This is the reason why we have the Feast of Tabernacles, where we all come down to the same level, regardless of whether we're rich or poor, and dwell in booth. Because we have those standards amongst us and those prejudices, but God sees us one way. And he wants to make sure that that's something that's emphasized. When he said, pick these men from you to be the leaders and the judges amongst, he said they have to be like this. They have to be able to not fear people, right? They don't take bribes. They don't have desire for personal gain. They fear men. And they're not worried about the pressure that the world gives them. They just judge justly. So, for us to understand the concept of justice, we have to dig deep in the Torah. And I'm saying this, I don't mean to offend people, but as a whole, we don't study enough. Okay. We don't study enough because some of our practices, human practices, are all against the concept of justice of Torah. Okay. We like our privilege. Even in Israel, we want privilege. And everything that Torah is against privilege. Right. It's against people holding themselves to a higher esteem than their fellow man. The very laws that the king was given is so that he can step down off his high horse and understand that you're still part of the rest of the people. You can't do this. You can't multiply wives and horses because you'll look at yourself higher than the rest of the people that are around about you. And if you think you're better than people, then you can't serve them. And mind you, God commanded us, justice shall you pursue. Amen. Same word for justice in Hebrew is righteousness. It's not a coincidence that these words are synonymous with one another, because you can't have righteousness without justice, and you can't have justice without righteousness. It's a debt. That's what it is. So what is justice? The condition of being morally correct or fair, just behavior or treatment, fairness, justness, fair play, fair-mindedness, equity, equitableness, even-handedness, egalitarianism, impartiality, impartialness, lack of bias, objectivity, neutrality, disinterestedness, lack of prejudice, open-mindedness, nonpartisanship, honor, uprightness, decency, integrity, probity, honesty, righteousness, ethics, morals, morality, virtue, principle, right-mindedness, propriety, scrupulousness, trustworthiness, incorruptibility, all ideas of social justice. In Israel, there is no Democratic Party. There is no Republican Party. It's God's party. Because we all got to be right. It's no conservative views or liberal views. It's just God's view. This is the blessing of Torah. Torah gives you the ability to understand what's right without the politics. You see, Israelites, we got a lot of politicians in Israel. We got people that they like to advocate for their own self-interest. And individuals are looking out for their ego. Like Samal said, not what's good for everybody. And part of the problem is that we look at Torah and we try to interpret God's Torah for our own personal advantages, our own gain. How can you twist around God's precious word so that it can be befitting for your personal ideals? But in honesty, we do it all the time. We read a verse, then give our opinion, then talk about how important God is, and at the same time, you're manipulating the minds of the people. God's word is perfect. If I said nothing, if I never taught a day of my life and just read off the bat, his word would still bring understanding. So what I'm saying is, when we read, please understand this. I do law because I love Yah. I love his people. I want to see us do better. I don't do law to serve a person, to serve a person's family, or to serve a person's personal interests. That's not the reason why I'm here. It's not the reason why any of you were called into this way of life. So when we take a stance against anything, trust and believe our stance is real. And it's not something that we do without foundation or without validity or without we can't explain to you. We can explain it to you to the T. I clearly understand what I do. I'm not a man as an individual. I shop, and I shop before I actually purchase. I could go online and I'm like, I wanted those pair of Clarks. I'm going to look at them again. I'm going to look at them a week later. I'm going to look at them. That's me. Yeah. I go to Target 5 times before I make a purchase. That's me. I don't go by, I'm not an impulsive person. I don't make my decisions like that. I try to weigh everything. And then it comes a time where enough is enough. And every day you support wickedness, you let the wickedness continue. Because you are wrong if you validate things that are wrong. I'm not saying you're actually doing a crime, but if a person goes and steals and you buy what they steal, are you supporting and enabling that thief? Yes, you are. I'm going to go there. You are supporting that bad behavior. Before you go and decide that you're going to visit and do this, whatever, promote the change that's needed. Because if you could tell me what to do in my face every 5 seconds about my stance, do the same with the other side. Be a man or a woman and do the same. Because if you say that you're reading law, that's what law dictates. Don't be unfaithful with me and be scared of everybody else. You're willing to step all on my pride, my integrity, because you think that I'm a nice guy. I ain't that nice. I'm more fair. Because that's what I believe in. I'm not saying I'm a bad person. But what I've noticed is that there are a lot of nice people who are wicked. Right? Because, as I said, there's a lot of us who are cosmetic. We have to learn to start being righteous people. I ain't saying walk around being grumpy and angry. It's not it. No, don't mistake. Quote, I'm not saying walking around being grumpy, because there's some people, they think that they have this righteous indignation and they got to walk around all tough and angry all the time. God didn't say nothing like that. But I'm saying when these matters come up, you have to understand what righteousness and justice is before you start to make a decision with your mouth and judge who you think doesn't have a right attitude towards the situation. Hear a matter first. Have an understanding of what's going on. It's not my fault that you may have made a decision that you didn't think about. But trust me, a lot of things you have to take into consideration because it's a lifelong thing. Lifelong relationships, lifelong commitments that you've made that you may have to run away from. You know, it ain't easy for a man to leave his wife or a woman to leave her husband, whatever the case may be, and get a divorce. Because it's something like, wow, I committed time with this person. Sometimes money is entangled. We got kids together. But at the end of the day, we're even going to read some passages today that what's best for us so that we don't kill one another is that we part ways. Right. So that we can have peace. Because we're at what is called an impasse. If you don't know what that is, that means that we're on a road, an unblockable place where we are not seeing eye to eye, and there's no way we can reconcile our differences in the situation. And that happens in life. You go listen, Abraham loved his nephew Lot. But they were at an impasse. It ain't that they had hatred toward each other, but they were at a point where they couldn't dwell with each other anymore. That's right. We just got too big. You got to go that way, I'll go my way. I still got love for you. When you were in trouble, I went and come and got you. Still love you. But certain things, unless we have that spirit, unless we understand that we all have to live by the rules, certain things we just can't do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the cluster of proverb verses that associate with that. Okay. So you don't have to do no work. I got you. Proverbs 16:11. A just balance and scales are Jehovah's. All the weights of the bag are his work. It is not talking about the physical bag. Right. It's talking about the bag of life, right? Because you know you have the weights and the scale. And the Most High is telling you that all of these things that you receive in life, God is in control of all of this stuff. It's his work. So one thing I don't worry about now, I'm young, I'm 43 years old. And I say that because I am young. There's still stuff I got to see in life. Still stuff I got to do in life. But this is what I've seen. I've seen wicked people get rewarded for their deeds. I've seen righteous men get rewarded for their deeds. Don't happen when you think it's going to happen. And it don't happen the way you think it's going to happen. But God, being the best knower of all things, knows how to get things done. You know, us, we want to punch people in the face and go to jail. We want to curse out their mama and all types of other stuff. God has this all under control. So don't worry about it. He's in charge. 17:13. Whoso rewardeth evil for good, evil should not depart from his house. Let me tell you something. There's people that feel like they can just do wrong by people and think they can get away with it. Nobody gets away with anything at all. Be fair. If I did something wrong, I could take it on the chin. If I'm not deserving of it and you give it to me, then God will be my vengeance. 17:15. He that justifieth the wicked and he that condemneth the righteous, even they both are an abomination to Jehovah. There's nowhere to really put this. I understand we have people we love. We got friends. All of that stuff is good. But if you're a Torah keeper, then you have to keep Torah. I'm not saying you got to be harsh, cruel. I'm just saying if you're a Torah keeper, you got to keep Torah. You have to let the chips fall where they may sometimes. Right? You can't be so quick to talk about you and yours and what you're not going to have and all of that stuff, because God is watching all of it. If men like David got punished, who are we? If men like Moshe was told they ain't going to the land, because who are we? We think we special, man. God ain't put no anointing oil on our head. We the ones that put all of that glow around us like we, Timac, we got the glow. We don't got the glow, man. Chill. God is in control. 17:23. A wicked man taketh the gift out of the bosom to pervert the way of justice. Brother, if I said that this is yours, it's yours.
Yes.
How all of a sudden my mind and my heart changed and I'm going to take back what I gave you?
Right.
For what? If that's your word and your word is supposed to be your bond as a man, how can you take back what you give somebody?
Right.
And you got people like that. They talk about, here, take this. And it's incumbent upon things you don't know nothing about.
Right.
We weird like that. You get too nashim, you want to take the TV out of one's house to bring it to the new one's house. And I heard people do stuff like that. Yeah. It's your car now. Give me that ring. I'm going to give it. This is not what you do. I understand if y'all break up and you take things that are yours. It's a difference. But a wicked man if it's a gift or something that you beholding or you're giving or you're promising somebody, and didn't they do stuff like that in the book? Didn't Saul do that? You gave your word, Saul. I don't care if you hate the guy or not. You promised the wife, promised him his wife, that's his wife. I don't care if you hate his guts, I don't like this dude. But that's what we're talking about. If you're going to be a Torah keeper, then be a Torah keeper. Keep it all the way, not when it's convenient for you to keep it. 17:26. To punish also the righteous is not good, nor to strike the nobles for their uprightness. You know, be careful. Be careful everywhere. But there are people who like to set traps. Right? They see you doing good, and they are condemning you for the good that you're doing, or the good person that you are. Be careful, because everybody don't like good people. You have to protect your good. You have to protect your offering before God. That's why I believe in protecting our place. I believe in that. I don't want everybody just walking up here and I'm just taking a seat and I'm chilling, and you sowing discord, whispering, doing all types of stuff, rebelling, teaching other people to rebel. You better learn how to protect your place. Because everybody ain't on your side just because they have a seat inside here. Just because they put on ZZs in the morning. Let me tell you a lesson that we learned. I don't know if all of y'all know. Some of y'all that is some Ishas know. You know, we probably went home and was like, But we had an experience in this process of getting all of this stuff together. You know, the basic running around, trying to get the place, getting up the money, running around, doing all that stuff. That stuff was the simple stuff. But in Israel was dumping problems on our lap. Like on our lap, like for real. And come to find out, we going back and forth with one another over something that it wasn't even worth our time and our effort. It was like we did all of that for nothing. God is teaching us something with that. This is a test. We matter most, and let's trust each other a little bit more. Right? And then the first decision that we have sometimes is the best decision. Like, if they ain't hard and right, then just don't let them in. Because they're not here. And I'm going to talk about being present, right? Because being here is different from being present. You know, I use this word a lot with my Isha. I be telling her she's absent. You know, she'd be like, you be talking about something, and I'll be watching the game. I was watching the game the other day. She said, well, those are the Bucks is playing. I said, no. It's Golden State playing the Raptors, man. Get with it. You're absent. But it means something, right? Because sometimes there's things that are critical in life, and you need to be present. You need to have an understanding of what's going on right now, especially if you want to have an opinion on the matter. Okay. Second thing I want to talk about is omniscience and omnipresence. God is all-knowing and God is everywhere. What's the premise of this? You know, oftentimes we have our Shabbat look, our Shabbat attitude, and then we have a whole nother attitude during the rest of the week. We gotta, as I said, we're cosmetic. Right. So sometimes the face that we show here, the righteous face, the nice face, is not really the face that we actually really have. It's not our inward parts. Right. It's not our understanding. But what the Most High God is trying to tell us is, I heard some echo. Yeah, okay. It's trying to tell us that He sees it all. So it don't make no sense for you having 5 faces and, you know, I know sometimes I got to put on my face when I go to work. I understand that. But everybody don't understand, you know. You got to put on your face sometimes. But God says He sees you. He sees you. He don't see the facade. He knows who and what you are. Proverbs 15:3. The eyes of Yahweh are in every place, keeping watch upon the evil and the good. 15:11. The netherworld and destruction are before Yahweh. How much more then the hearts of the children of men? That particular verse, listen. The netherworld and destruction are the worst places in the world. If He knows what's going on in that, He knows what's going on in your heart and the hearts of all men. God sees it all. Remember that movie with Minority Report? Interesting movie, right? They had this thing called pre-crime that arrests you for your intent to do something bad. Interesting. Yeah. Because if we got arrested for our intent or what's inside our head, we all be locked up. Sometimes you want to kill your own kids. It happens. Because your anger gets like that. But the Most High sees it all. And it's great to have God in your life because those voices that you hear, they're not always your voices. Most of the time, it's God trying to reason with you. It's the God in you trying to reason with you to give you understanding. Because listen, if you go and do sometimes you want to do some things, you behind bars. That's right. Have a murder case. Because that's what emotions give you sometimes. Sometimes you just need to chill and relax. I don't advocate smoking weed, but sometimes you got to just go and take a puff and call it a day. Because you just need to relax yourself. Because your emotions, like all of it, it can get the best of you. And it can drive you down the wrong path. 16:2. All the ways of a man are clean in his own eyes, but Jehovah weigheth the spirit. Yeah. Let me tell you something. That's why we need God. Because I feel, and we be saying that all day. In my heart, I feel you're wrong. Right. Because you're a man. And men don't got it like that. Right. Men are not, there's no person that's always right. That's why counsel is important. You need balance. There's people that need to tell you the side that you don't see. And all of us have ways to justify the wrong things that we do. I've done it plenty of times. Yeah, you know, this is good. You know, eating this is good. It's all right, ain't nothing wrong with it. It's wrong. It's wrong. And we know what's wrong. We knew it was wrong before we did it. But you got to understand that this is us being men. And yes, that's why we have to follow God. Because God sets our path aright. That's why we have a Torah, because we have, as it was said earlier today, that's our common foundation. That's what we need to agree upon. So anytime we get into a little, oh, no. But look what this says. And if we have an understanding of what this says, and not our made-up version of what this says, unity ain't going to be a problem. 16:25. There is a way which seem right unto a man, but the end thereof are the ways of death. The third theme I want to discuss is reproof. Reproof is basically is criticism for a fault or an expression of disapproval. Synonyms are rebuke, reprimand, reproach, criticism, censure, a check or correction. You know, oftentimes our lack of balance is because we don't want people being mad at us. We won't tell them anything. And their sin is before everybody. But we won't put them in just saying, listen, brother, what you did was wrong. Or you need to fix it. Or you need to apologize. And actually, the correction comes when they make good on the evil that they've done. But the check is, somebody needs to tell them that they did wrong. Yeah, you know, David sitting up on his throne, everything is good. Just committed adultery and got somebody murdered. But he had to be reminded of his crime. He had to be reminded of his crime. And sometimes, even as men, we do things so bad, and we think because we got away with it, that we're innocent. Right. It's a difference. Right. Just because you got away with murder, doesn't mean that you're not a murderer. You just got away for now. But God is watching everything. He sees it all. And God built this world and this universe on the principle of justice. Throw something up in the air, it's going to come right back down. 15:5. A fool despiseth his father's correction, but he that regardeth reproof is prudent. 15:10. There is a grievous correction for him that forsaketh the way, and he that hateth reproof shall die. You know, there's people that call me stubborn. You stubborn, man. You know. You got to watch the things you say about people. When it comes time for judgment, you know, there's the people that won't show up. They won't show up. They won't be like, listen, they won't be told anything. They won't be told that they're wrong. You can't pull their coat. They don't even take advice. And the reason why there's a grievous correction, because you see people that's like, you know, they think that they can be okay without keeping God's Torah. Like they were here 1 week and they're not here, or they were born in this way of life and they are not here anymore, and think that it's going to be okay because of society. Society is not God. Brooklyn is not God. New York is not God. The NYPD is not God. God has the final say on what he's going to do with your life, because remember, you turned his back on him, so it's only fair that he turns his back on you. Right? If he chooses to. But you can't get mad if he chooses to do that. Because you were once part of this covenant and this agreement. So everybody that you may see that think that they're living a life of success, and I'm going to get into that because material wealth is very vain. It's a very vain concept, right? But a lot of what we see with individuals that think they're okay because they abandon God and they're doing well, so to speak, the Most High God has a grievous punishment for them. And I'm not giving you a fire and brimstone speech like they're going to walk down the street and lightning's going to hit them. But you have to think about this. If this is your wisdom and understanding of the side of the nations, and you abandon it, usually the lack of wisdom and understanding that you decided not to practice will be your own undoing. And that's usually the case. There's some people that don't understand it. They're crumbling right before their own. People see it. You're falling. You're down. It ain't the material things. It's the lack of wisdom that you're using as an individual because you don't appreciate or didn't appreciate your relationship with Yah. And this is something that, like all good things, you got to maintain it. You know, your plant, you and your plant, if you have a plant in your house, I have plants in my house, your plant has a relationship with you. You know, you give it CO2, it gives you oxygen. You know, you give it sunlight, you water it, X, Y, and Z, and it helps actually clean and purifies the air around you. That's a relationship. It's a give and take. Same thing with the Most High. So now you don't keep it sharp-toed. You ain't resting. Don't be questioning why your body's breaking down or why you always feel tired. I think I need some vitamins. You need to start praising the Most High. You need to start finding Him again, loving Him again, because He loves you even in your wayward ways. He loves us. He doesn't love the wickedness that we do, but He loves us. So you have to always find your way back to God. You know, some of us are ashamed. I don't know if I'll go back, people are going to say something about you. If they do, you got to deal with it because you abandon Him. You abandon the struggle. But I learned not to do that because I know that there's some people that may go through some things and everybody is not as strong as everybody else. But you have to remember that God is strong, period. So even if you don't go to a particular place, you should never abandon Him. (15:12) A scorner loveth not to be reproved. He will not go unto the wise. You know those guys that like to point fingers. They love judging everybody but don't like being judged. They like having an opinion about everybody but don't want no opinion about them. If you're going to give it, you got to learn to take it. 15:31. The ear that hearkeneth to the reproof of life abideth amongst the wise. That means if you're able to listen to good advice, to good reproof, to good reprimand, if somebody has to pull you to the side and tell you a thing or two, and you are listening to something that can save your life, then yeah, obviously you are an intelligent and smart and wise person. Because you know, listen, yeah, I needed to hear that. And I hear that from a lot of people. You know what? I was upset about what you told me the other day, but I went home, I thought about it, you were right. And sometimes I've said that. You walk up, man, like, telling me, be real with you, I don't like being told stuff. It's me. But I would rather be told than to deal with the punishment. So I'll give up the pride issue. It's not worth it all. So I'll listen to anybody. Young person, Chief Naphtali, the verse didn't say that. It said this. Torah. Because that's life. How a teacher ain't going to be able to be told nothing. Right. And you still want to teach? So you're going to teach, but your learning stopped. So what are you going to teach now? You're not learning anything. Always be in a position to be humble. Always be in a position to listen to what people have to say. 15:32. He that refuseth correction despiseth his own soul, but he that hearkeneth to reproof getteth understanding. 17:10. A rebuke entereth deeper into a man of understanding than 100 stripes into a fool. You know, the Proverbs talks about fools all day. But this is what you know about individuals. People that can't be told nothing, you can beat them to death. They still ain't going to change. So it don't matter what you do. Sometimes it's just a matter of listening. And you never want to do this with people and just wash your hands. But sometimes it's like they got to learn on their own. There's some parents that they love their kids. But listen, I've been beating the boy. I've been doing this. He's still going to do what he's going to do. I can't It's out of my hands. Best I can do is pray for you. The next concept I want to discuss is wealth. You know, when I look up wealth, you know, it basically talks about material, money, how much stuff you got, whatever, and goods to exchange, what have you. And then there's another concept of wealth that is not the conventional dictionary version, right? So, I first want to go through the verses, and then I want to read an article that gives understanding to how, you know, people are now changing their hearts and their mind towards the concept of what true wealth is, and how, you know, people making millions of dollars off of reading Proverbs. Wealth. Proverbs 15:6. In the house of the righteous is much treasure, but the revenues of the wicked is trouble. You know, it's better to be a paper boy than a drug dealer. And I understand, you know, we live in New York, you know, Nino Brown. I know we're fascinated by the whole culture, but you have to think about it. You know, if I have to make this money and look over my shoulders every day, is it worth it? Right. If I got to worry about going to jail, put my family in jeopardy. You know that there's women in jail because their men were selling drugs? Right. They're doing time because it's called conspiracy. It's like, oh, you know, you knew about it, so you're in concert. You didn't do a hand-to-hand, cut an ounce to exchange money. You didn't do none of that stuff. But you're in trouble because of that. So with all of that being said, you don't want to take ill gain inside your house. You don't want to feed your family with stolen money, con money, trickery money. It ain't worth it. Because the evil that money carries goes into the spirit of what you do for your family. So you eating somebody's bread that, you know, they crying out to God because that money was stolen and they can't pay their rent. And they homeless now. Think about the consequence that evil has. That money has when it goes into your house and you think you're going to do good with ill gain. 15:15. All the days of the poor are evil, but he that is of a merry heart have a continual feast. Now it's trying to get you to think about being relative, right? In our minds, you know, it's not really about not having, it's about having a poor spirit. If you walk around moping and I need this, your life is evil to you because you think that you're owed something. Right. Or you think you deserve everything. But he that is of a merry heart, and there's people that are like that. That they may not have much, but they don't let the world get them down. Right. I was watching the Wu-Tang documentary. As much as I could watch the last 3 episodes I saw, the first 3 episodes. And what's interesting is this. You know, a lot of us cry about what we don't got, whatever the case may be. These people, they come before you and they rapping and they may be successful, but they got their struggle stories. Ghostface said that it was him, his mother, and he had 2 brothers that had MS. And you know what, MS is no joke. And you got, because they don't have control over their muscles and they can't speak right. And he said, I had to take them and, you know, they walking around and I got to wheel them different places. I got to wash them up and do all that. And this is what you're doing as a young man. So you look at them and they may be all flashy, but they have a story behind that. They have a struggle behind their success. Meth said he was living in here, then he had to move to a shelter, and then he said, you know, it was hard because you made friends in the shelter, but when the shelters are temporary, so people got to go. But then when he actually finally moved to Staten Island, he said, Staten Island, they were poor, but what masked the poverty was the fact that everybody was in the same condition and they made the best out of the circumstances that they have. It's not until we have pride and we want to look down on one another is when black people started to have problems. Because remember, we were all slaves. We all had, I mean, then when you started making that difference between the light skin and the dark skin, then you had problems amongst us. When you had house nigga, field nigga, that's when you started to have problems. And those atmospheres create animosity. And I look at individuals, even amongst us, who like to divide us and tear us apart and try to treat one's better than the other and then call themselves, I say that I love God's people. You don't love God's people if those are the things that you do with God's people.
Right. Okay.
You have to teach people that regardless of what, we're all one.
That's right.
Now, if anybody gets castigated or ostracized, it should be because of their ways, not because of their condition, not because of what island they come from, not because they wasn't down with a certain crew at a certain time. That should be meaningless because our common base, once again, is Torah.
Amen.
That's what matters. How good of a person you are. Not because you don't dress that fly. You may stutter when you speak. You may be dark-skinned. You may be chocolate dark-skinned. You may be high yellow, pissy color, whatever they say. That shouldn't matter. But when you elevate your understanding, those things will never matter. It won't matter. But us, we come with prejudice and we bring all of the Negro prejudices that we have. There's still people talking about, he got good hair. What's good hair? And you know how funny that good hair thing is? Let me tell you how funny that is. Black people are blessed with nappy hair. It's what black people don't understand. Our hair absorbs the sun's energy, protects our hair from cancerous rays that come from the sun, and it naturally absorbs sweat. So unlike other people who have the straight hair, their hair gets stink earlier, dirty earlier, because they can't absorb the oils like that. So their hair is like always oily because the oil just sits on top of their hair. And so it makes sense when God anointed our priests and our kings that we were anointed with oil because he was feeding our hair. And black hair is a beautiful thing. We could lock it. We could twist it. We could wave it. We could just leave it out. But it's beautiful. Black hair is lovely. Certain things, and we can do all of this without chemicals. Just a little bit of hot water and some grease is a miracle for us. We can make it happen. But we are taking away the things that God gave us to actually protect us on this earth. You see, when God made Adam and Eve, the animals had claws, they had fur, they had things to protect them in the elements. We were given this thing called melanin. That's because we were out there. And remember, they were naked. So they couldn't be of light skin walking around in what they call the habitable earth, in the Garden of Eden, exposed to everything. White. Sorry. Luciderm. Caucasoid, whatever you want to call it. I mean, no disrespect. No disrespect. But this was our protection. So we could walk and we could be out there and without, they say that you got only 2 hours in the sun. How is Adam going to be out there for only 2 hours if he got to name animals all day, till the ground? He out there. And that same attribute that we had was the reason why we were so fit to be slaves in this country, because they tried slavery with the Irish. They tried it with the Indians, even in their own habitat, and they started dying. They couldn't endure because the sun is too much for these people to handle. Even Indians, they have dark skin, but they don't absorb the sun like we. The sun actually gives us energy. It actually gives you energy. It feeds you vitamin D. It says this area, and this area. They actually feeds you. It gives you energy. So you be out there. Freedom coming, freedom coming, freedom coming. And they hate you for that. I beat this nigga to death. And he's still out here singing. Freedom coming, freedom. Because that's all we got. Hope.
That's right. Hope.
Freedom coming, freedom coming. 15:16. Better is a little with the fear of Yah than great treasure and turmoil therewith. So we all got What movie? I was watching that terrible movie. The new Superfly. It's that Snow Patrol. Y'all got all this money, y'all in the strip club doing all this stuff, and y'all still angry. It's better a little. The Most High is giving you the perspective of what wealth truly is. It's better as a little if we can get along and have peace. And, there's people that be fighting you for weed money. Fighting you because they can't go and get their nails done or go to the club. What are you fighting me for that for? Our job is to sustain ourselves, not for me to make somebody rich. Understand that. When you get married and you decide to have a family, the essence of what you're supposed to do is cooperate in all aspects of your life. If you're going to fight over money, divorce now, because money problems don't stop.
That's right.
I'm going to let you know that now. This is life. People lose jobs. People's jobs shut down. People have unexpected bills. I didn't know I had these parking tickets. Forgot to pay them. But things happen in life. And if those are things that you can't weather or storms that you can't weather, then don't get married. It ain't for you. Because those are the small things. Those material items are the small things. Because those are tangibles that can be fixed. The things that can't be fixed is disloyalty, lack of devotion, lack of commitment, lack of cooperation. Those personal attributes that you have individually that you don't want to get over. Those are the things that you can't fix. So understand what wealth is. You may have a woman that's beautiful, man. Fine as May wine. Walk down the street, look like a Coke bottle. A Coke bottle actually that's spinning. That's how fine she is. But if her ways ain't right, it ain't worth it. Better, 15:17. Better is a dinner with herbs, where love is, than a stalled ox and hatred therewith. I'm reminded, I'm a movie buff. I think the movie was The Untouchables. And Al Capone is there, and he got a whole spread, and everybody's in tuxes. And he got the baseball in his hand. And he's like, baseball is a game. It's a team sport. And he walks around the room, and the guy that he don't even know that he's a mark, about to get his head busted, he's having a good old time. Oh yeah, next thing you know, bang, bang, bang. To me, all of that don't mean nothing because, there's people sitting across the room. Y'all look good. Y'all have a spread, but y'all hate each other. Or y'all in fear of somebody messing up or whatever. It's better that we have a little. And back in the days with brothers, how you would get up money. Me and my cousins used to do that. We get up a little bit of money so that we can get our little chips and all that. It wasn't nothing, but it was like, yo, how much you got? I got a 50 cents. I got $1. When you get older, it turns into weed. That's another story. When you're young, yeah, that's the weed start. When you're young, it's really, we're going to split a juice. We're going to split a bag of potato chips and maybe we get a candy or a cake, whatever. But you pull your resources together to get your little poor meal or snack because you don't want to go in the house. Y'all want to hang out. Y'all come together and y'all make it happen. And then you get older and people start getting in, you become too good for the people that were around you before. Or you think you're special. Money don't make you special. It's not something that makes you, it's what it is. It's a means, right? But it shouldn't make a person's character. 15:27. He that is greedy of gain troubleth his own house, but he that hateth gifts shall live. Like I talked before, you shouldn't have your hand out all the time. You shouldn't be caring about what's coming in all the time. And if you're greedy of gain, that means you want. You're a troubler. Your own house. Because they knock on your door. Yo, your husband owes me money. They don't care if their husband is dead or not. You put your wife in jeopardy. You put your family in jeopardy. You walking down the street, yo, that's his son right. That's his son right there. That's his daughter right there. And people get snatched up. Talking about, oh, what happened? I don't know, these guys, when you owe people money, you doing this, you doing that. Don't worry about that, please. Don't compromise your morals for material gain. It ain't worth it. God will bless you in due time. Better is a little with righteousness than great revenues with injustice. Better is a dry morsel and quietness therewith than a house full of feasting with strife. So I read this article, and this is this group that they work with kind of wealthy individuals to get them to be focused and understand the perspectives of life. So what they discuss is that there are 4 types of wealth. Research shows that families that have sustained wealth over more than 3 generations often have a different view and definition of wealth. These successful families see wealth from 4 different perspectives, of which money is only one. The risk of a one-dimensional wealth perspective. The proverb, shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in 3 generations, is pervasive across many cultures. It effectively communicates the concept that the wealth created by one generation is seldom sustained through another 2 generations. And you read history, a lot of people that get wealth from their parents, they usually squander it. These families often don't consider the other types of wealth that exist beyond money and their importance to long-term sustainability. Successful multi-generational families treat money as an important tool, but not the only one. They also focus on recognizing the nurturing other types of wealth, self or human capital, relationships, which is social capital, and values, which is cultural capital. This development is critical and successfully transferring wealth from generation to generation. He said their goal is to help develop those 4 types of wealth patterns, what have you. So let's talk about the self, or the human capital. Confident, self-assured, intellectually engaged, intellectual capital, resilient, productive, and happy members of your family. If you're in a situation and you have all the money in the world, but you don't treat your family right, and you don't show love, then what's the point of the wealth? There's no point to it. Unless you're working for another motive. But you have it all, but people around you are not happy. But you know that happens. Relationships, social capital. Feeling connected, sharing your dreams, finding partners, engaging in your communities, finding solutions, overcoming challenges, making a difference, and much more apt to happen with the strong network of quality relationships. You know, what we were able to accomplish last week, and I want to just give everybody a round of applause for their work, their contribution. But, you know, if we hate each other, things like that can't happen. You know, you can't call people in for love and unity if you don't have it amongst yourself. Right. You can't give people what you don't have. Right. But what we need to do is enhance what we can build upon, and the things that we know that, okay, yeah, we did a good job, but I don't want us to be patting ourselves in the back like we the stuff right now, because we have a lot of work to still do. Right. That's right. We have a lot of changes to make. There's always things that we can do better. We can always be nicer. Right. We can always think about people a little bit more. No, we could always have a handout to the community to make sure that we're doing some good works. There's always more that we can do to make sure that God is pleased with us. Because sometimes things, oh yeah, we accomplished this, we did this, and then we stop there like God is just gave us a message that he's satisfied. And that's not the case. So whatever avenue that you see that we can do good in serving our community, these things help bring us actually closer together. the more good you do together, the closer that you can become together. Values. Cultural capital. This may be the most difficult type of wealth to define, build, and nurture, but it's the most rewarding and enduring. It brings that says, oh, get over that, until it happens to them. You know, I talked about this, and it's not singling out the Sean Bell family, but you remember what happened with Sean Bell. Sean Bell, he wasn't shot by white cops, he was shot by mostly black cops. And it was 50 shots that went out. He got hit with a majority of bullets because somebody yelled gun. And oftentimes, there are people who are outside of this struggle for social justice because it hasn't happened to them yet. Right. They don't understand it, or they don't want to be a part of it. They have better things to do because it hadn't affected them as of yet. Right. Until it affects them. Solomon Northup, we have to remember, if you saw the movie or read the book, he was good. He was a musician. He was living in Saratoga. He got along with white people. There wasn't that level of strict racism that he had to deal with in the South. But he had to experience it for 12 years. And then after he experienced it is when he became an abolitionist. Before, it wasn't his problem. That was a Southern issue. What affects the least of us affects the greatest of us. What affects one of us affects all of us. So don't believe if somebody does something bad to me that it's okay, Chief Nath can deal with it. Because that's the garbage that got us in a situation where we feel like we don't have to respect one another.
Right. That's right.
Respect everybody. Right. Until they prove that they are no longer worthy of your respect. That's right. And the only reason they should be unworthy of your respect is if they don't respect God. And there's other ways they could perform that. They can be disrespectful to people, but they've shown in essence that they don't respect God. Or they don't care anything about what God says or feels or what have you. Last capital was money, but that's not the focus. The last thing I want to talk about is pride. So, pride is funny when it comes to translating the word in English because it can mean something good and it can mean something bad. We've had this debate for years. I come up and say, we need to have a sense of pride. Another person come up, pride is wicked. You want somebody to have pride. So, pride is just the English word. But what they talk about in the Proverbs and in the book when it talks about pride, a lot of it is really is ego, vanity. That definition of pride is what we want to try to avoid. Having pride and self-esteem is a good thing, right? I'm not talking about gay pride. I'm talking about pride and accomplishment. I got my high school diploma. You should be proud. I got my master's degree. Son, I am proud of you, right? I'm showing showing that I value, right? And showing you a bit of praise because you accomplished a hard task. We should be proud of what we accomplished last week. I don't want to sound like an English teacher, but sometimes we just need to hear it that way, right? Those things that we should be proud of. A person should take pride in their appearance. Yes. Right? Shouldn't walk out the house just looking any other way. But this is not the pride. That pride that we talk about is the ego. Meaning, I come first. I'm the most important thing to me and you. Right? And I matter. I what matters. My feelings are what matters. Forget about your feelings. I matter. Inordinate self-esteem or conceit, proud or disdainful behavior, treatment, ego, vanity, and a peculiar high level of self-regard. Proverbs 15:25, Jehovah will pluck up the house of the proud, but he will establish the border of the widow. Meaning, because you know the widow, in most cases, she doesn't have anything because our society was based on the land system given to men so they can inherit it child to child. Oftentimes, sometimes when the husband dies, women are left without anything unless they have a child to inherit. In a lot of cases, widows don't do too well. That's why our tithe was supposed to feed poor people, the fatherless, the widow, the people that don't have. I don't know why the church collect tithe. The New Testament doesn't say anything about tithe. And if you hate the Old Testament, why are you collecting tithe? Don't understand that. But with that being said, our Lord was a system to make sure that everybody eats, everybody's taken care of, good, rich and poor alike. So the Most High will pluck up the house of the proud, but he will establish the border of the widow. 16:5. Everyone that is proud in heart is an abomination to Jehovah. My hand upon it, he shall not be unpunished. 16:8. Pride goeth before destruction, and a haughty spirit before the fall. That's why I'm saying that, you know, your cosmetic facade that we like to build up, and we assume that, you know, we have to get out of the habit of blessings or come in the form of material wealth, because they don't.
Right. Okay.
You know, I'm 43 years old. I live in Brooklyn, and I avoided jail this far. I'll be patting myself on the back every day. I'll be like, yeah. Because I come from a generation that came up in the 90s, and they said that we have a higher chance of death and incarceration than anybody on the face of the planet at that time. Black on black crime was so high with my generation X. Was so high. They said that we would be a casualty before people in war-torn countries would become a casualty. And there was statistics that showed that more black people die in the streets of New York and Chicago and LA than are dying in countries like Afghanistan and Beirut, and where they have actual wars that were actually happening. So when you are able to pass a certain threshold in life, praise Yah, because the odds were stacked against us, but we're still here. But don't let that think that the Most High God is not going to get you.
That's right.
You know, we think that I got a new pair of shoes, that's fine. You still owe. You got a nice car, that's good. Got a new girlfriend, that's excellent. But you're still going to pay. 16:19. Better is to be of a lowly spirit with the humble than to divide the spoil with the proud. Hallelujah. Hope you got something out of what was brought forth. Thanking the Most High God for life, health, and strength. And hoping and praying that we can all come together and do things to bring more success and be an ensign to this nation. Hallelujah.